Joining us. The students and I spent some time this morning in our in-person session just briefly talking about some of the history of Islam in North America and the region and so forth. As I told you, I think in our exchanges and our phone conversation before, our aim with this has been much more to get a sense of the sort of lived experience of the different communities that we're meeting with. Mm-hmm. I think you are our 7th or 8th guest speaker in the class so far, so we've had a chance to talk to a variety of folks. And so I'll start with this, as obviously you know, right? The history of New England and religion in New England has been very Christian, very Catholic, liberal Protestants, and so forth. We spent some time on the Society's webpage today looking, and you've got that really nice timeline of Islam in the region, and relatively speaking, Islam in any kind of significant presence has been a relative newcomer to the region. And so I wonder if you could start with talking to us about how do you think that impacts the sense of Muslim identity in the Springfield area, West Springfield, the Pioneer Valley, however you want to think about that. How do you think that impacts the sense of what it means or what it feels like to be Muslim here?
I think that's a very nice way you put it. Feels like to be Muslim here. Because I think religious identity, whether we like it or not, is quite strongly rooted in and connected with a regional, cultural identity as well.
Yeah.
Now, what happens with the Muslims here, and of course, I am not being a spokesperson for all Muslims, and so I'm just talking about my experience of this and what I see from the people I interact with and so on, is that for a lot of Muslims, the Muslim identity is still connected to, within quotes, what they call back home.
Yeah.
And back home is usually the country they came from. So because a lot of them are migrants, and of course many of them are not migrants from the Middle East, they're migrants from all over the place. So you have people who are migrated from Europe. You have a lot of Bosnians and people from Bosnia, that area. We have, of course, people from Africa. We have people from Sudan, Somalia, and so on. We have people from, of course, the Middle East, and then we have people from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So it's they're all Muslim, but very, very different in terms of their own cultural background, languages they speak, food they eat, clothes they wear, local customs, lots of, and a lot or almost all of it obviously gets imported. So the fact that they are living now in New England does not disconnect them from their roots, and I don't think anybody wants that to happen either. It's a good thing. You should be connected to your roots. So that is one aspect of it. So if you say, well, how is the experience of being in New England different? For a lot of them, apart from the weather, it's not much. I mean, there's no snow where they come from, and there's a lot of snow here. But apart from that, it's not very different. They go back into their same atmospheres at home and so on and so forth. They're speaking their languages, which is why a lot of them, even though they've been living in America, living in this area, they don't speak English fluently at all. English is not their first language. The first language is something else. Now, then we have a next generation, which is children born here and who have been to, they went through the American school system, they have got American friends and so on and so forth. Now that is, we have in that group actually there is in some cases quite a lot of confusion in terms of identity. Now who am I? Am I American or am I Pakistani American? What does that mean? What exactly does Pakistani American mean? What exactly does Arab American mean, or whatever you want to call it? So there is that. There is quite a lot of that confusion in terms of culture, symbols, practices, especially what works and what doesn't work, all of that sort of stuff. Then we have, of course, in this area, a number of African American Muslims who are, many of them are not converts. They are people who have been Muslim for generations. And they have they are definitely but their identity is again very much in terms of black African American Islam. I mean, many of them came to within quotes mainstream Islam from the from the black Muslims movement and
Nation
so
of
forth.
Islam and groups like that.
Yeah, exactly. So many of them came from there. Others didn't come from there. But there is the whole thing there is more in terms of African American rather than New England and so on and so forth. So there is a very interesting mix of a lot of people. And I think one of the advantages I have is because I speak several languages, I am able to connect with many of them at different levels. Because at the end of the day, no matter how important religion is, the connector for the culture is the language. And so therefore, if you can speak the language of the people, then you connect to them much more easily. And so I'm happy that I'm able to do that. So it's a very mixed experience. There is, of course, I think I can say quite frankly and without exaggeration that they're all very happy to be in America, happy to be living in this part of the world. Especially New England is a very beautiful place. I mean, I don't have to tell you that we all live here. So apart from talk about the weather, you have 4 distinct seasons, which in most of the places that these people come from and we come from, we don't have 4 distinct seasons. The other thing is that, like they say, you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes. I mean, it's so there's that as well. And then there is, I think, by and large, in this part of the country of America, and I'm sure you're going to ask me that question. Thanks to the fact that the level of education, the level of acceptance of diversity, and the number of immigrant population and so on, there is a lot more tolerance. There is a lot more, people are more open to new cultures and new traditions and so forth. And I think all of that is something which is much appreciated. For example, we do not have some of the extreme cases of Islamophobia or racial hatred or racial violence in this part of the country like we hear from other parts of the country. So I think that's something everyone is obviously very relieved about. There have been instances, for example, in the Islamic Center in our mosque many years ago when we had built a new extension, and quite literally the night before the new extension was to be inaugurated, somebody got in and smashed all the windows.
Oh.
Yeah, all of them. So, I mean, obviously it was, the thing about these things is not a matter of what does it cost to replace the window. It's the whole shock of that there is somebody out there who hates you enough to do that. Smash all the windows. And I mean, thank God there was nobody in the mosque at the time, otherwise it could have been much worse. There was another case. We have 2 little signs. There are 2 on the road. There are 2 turns, and to clear it, to direct people, we have 2 little signs saying Islamic Society. So somebody uprooted one of the signs. Now that guy got caught on camera. So, but what we did, and I think it was a very good thing. I mean, I wasn't here at the time, but I think it's a very sensible thing that people did. They decided not to press charges and so on. So they told the police to hold off. They invited the guy. He came. They invited him to lunch. They sat with him. They talked to him, and of course, everybody went off home quite happily. And they put the sign back, and it hasn't been moved from then. So I think that was a very proactive and a much better way of dealing with it, rather than whatever, let the law take its course kind of thing. I think it's some of these things one has to have more than normal patience and forbearance.
Yeah, I'm taking notes here. Thank you for that. You hit on a number of themes that we've sort of talked about in class and other things like that. One of the things that we've been talking about, and of course this is part of the reason why we're on a screen right now, is because of COVID and all the stuff with that. So there are a few questions I've been asking all of our different guest speakers, and one of them is what decisions they made with regard to COVID in terms of whether to meet in person or not to meet in person, how they came about to make those decisions, kind of where they're at now. And then another piece of that that I'm interested in is what some communities are going to keep from that, right? We've had people that have talked about, they've actually had people who've had better access to their community because of not having to travel and things like that. So could you walk us through some of that, of what the decisions were that the society made and how you made those decisions?
Yeah, this started, of course, way back, now it sounds like way back, but like 2 years ago. Really 2019 December, I think it was, something like that.
Yeah, late December into January is right when we were first sort of hearing things.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when we went. The first thing that happened was the lockdown. We just shut the mosque. I mean, there wasn't anybody there. And then, of course, there was a lot of discussion. We had town halls on Zoom. Of course, we had board meetings, and then we had town halls on Zoom, and we consulted with everybody. And for a period, of course, the mosque was shut. So there was no daily prayer and so on. No congregational prayer in the mosque. However, what we did was, we did two things. One was, as far as the prayer, the Friday prayer is concerned, which is the weekly congregational prayer. One of the things about Islam is that Islamic law is not a monolithic, static thing which never changes. Islamic law is extremely dynamic, and it's very responsive to challenges. So, for example, one of the very fundamental principles in Islamic law is that if you are in a place and you're resident and you're healthy, then there is no excuse for missing the Friday prayer. If you deliberately miss the Friday prayer, it's like a major sin. Now, our scholars, they came up with this thing, and they said that missing the Friday prayer in the physical sense, thanks to the pandemic and all of that, so is okay as long as you do the Friday prayer at home. So now, doing the Friday prayer at home, if you just go back and say, was there such a ruling on this thing? Definitely not a common ruling. I mean, in the sense of they extracted the ruling from some other kinds of things of what the Prophet, peace be upon him, did in terms of emergencies and so on. But was there a ruling to say Friday prayer can be done at home? No, there wasn't. So it was a new thing, and I think it shows the dynamism of Islamic law. Then they said, well, what about the sermon? So they said, well, the sermon can be done virtually. And so you can listen to the sermon on your phone or whatever, and then you can do the prayer at home. And that's what we did. And so people like myself, we recorded our Friday sermons. I've been doing that now for 2 years. For 2 years, we've been recording the Friday sermons. So they go out every Friday at 1 o'clock or something, and then people who so they were praying at home. Then when the rules relaxed and people were allowed, initially it was just 10 people in the mosque, no matter how big the mosque was, and then it was a little more and so on. And then we had the 6 feet social distancing and so forth. So we did a number of things. Number one was we ripped out all the carpets in the mosque, because we said the carpets are more likely to be contaminated. So the mosque, all the carpets got ripped out. So now it just has a concrete floor. Then we put 6-foot markers on the floor. And then what we did was that for Fridays, we set up a system where a person has to register online, and then they are sent an invite for them to attend Friday prayers. And there are security guards. You can't just walk in. They check your name on the list to see whether you were registered or not. If you didn't register, you're not let in. I was telling somebody the other day, I said it's more difficult. I mean, it's like getting into Fort Knox or something. It's our mosque is like that. So there's then the security guard. They were the guys. They had those temperature thermometers. We had hand sanitizers, and then we had this N95 mask rule, which was absolutely inviolable. You cannot enter even the premises. We said you cannot enter the property without a mask. So if you drive in with your car, when you're getting out of the car, you must have your mask on. even though you are in the open space. So those things we implemented, and those we continue to implement, even though rules have now relaxed to a great extent, but we have said no, as far as we are concerned, we are going to continue to implement the COVID rules. Now again, here was another very major Islamic, legally speaking, very major, within quotes, innovation that was done, which was the permission for people to stand 6 feet apart in Salah, in the formal congregational prayer. Because as you know, in Islam, you stand shoulder to shoulder. And standing shoulder to shoulder is actually a mark of faith, and it's a mark of the equality of people. I mean, you can be a billionaire and you can be somebody who's a pauper, a homeless person, but in the mosque, there is no differentiation. If you're head of state, there's no differentiation. You stand shoulder to shoulder with the other guy. You don't say, well, he's a poor guy, or he's black, or he's white, or whatever. It doesn't matter. If he is in the mosque, he's a Muslim, he's praying, then you stand shoulder to shoulder. Now that law had to be changed. So we said now, because of the pandemic, you stand 6 feet apart and your salah is still valid. This is a very important point, because initially, as far as Islamic law was concerned, if you had gaps in your saf, which was called the line, your salah was invalid, right? Your prayer was invalid. But we said no, the prayer is valid because of these reasons. Because and all of this comes from the fundamental principle in Islamic law, which is preservation of life, and everything becomes subservient to what is required for preservation of life. So the whole thing comes from this, that by my action, I must not harm either myself or anybody else. And in order to do that, everything else is malleable, everything else can be adjusted. So I think these are the two major things we did. Third thing we did was the other issue, which was how do we keep connected with our community, because we have a large community, we have a very dynamic community, and one of the things in this mosque which we really enjoyed was the personal meeting, sharing, especially in Ramadan, the iftars, the eating together was a big thing. Every Friday we would have tables set up in the social hall and in the basement, and we would give Friday meals out, and after the Friday prayer, people would sit and eat together. Now all of that came to a halt. So we really had people, we couldn't meet anybody. So we started two things. We started town halls every week, where people just come in and we just chat. If there's anything important to talk about, we did that. Otherwise, it was more a sort of fellowship and let off some steam kind of stuff, which was good. And what we did was I, for example, did a lot of lectures. I used to do, and I still do, 5 lectures a week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday 4, and then the Jummah Friday. So 5 lectures a week on different topics. Now, and of course we do that either on Zoom, or we do it on YouTube Live, or something like that. The purpose behind all that, apart from education, was to keep in touch with the community, so that people don't feel completely isolated, that we are still there, somebody cares for me, kind of stuff. So this was, I think it worked out very well. As a matter of fact, I think what you were saying just now is that in a way, this remote connecting, even though it is, we all of us, we want the physical personal connecting to come back as quickly as possible. But one of the things the remote connecting has done is that it has made it more convenient for people to meet. One is, it is because it is recorded, people can listen to that thing later at their own convenience and so on. Second thing is that people can listen to it while driving and so on, even though it's on video, but they can listen to the audio. And then people just coming in is much simpler than driving, especially in winters and so on. Driving to the mosque, people used to come. For example, typical class before this, I would have maybe, the day I had 20 people in the class, I'd sort of celebrate. But but now every class is on average of 80, 90 people, or sometimes over 100 people. Now, there's no way that we would have got 100 people into the mosque, especially 4 times a week. I keep telling them, I said, we are we are kind of dying of an overdose of religion. I mean, it's like, who wants to listen to religion for 4 days a week for an hour? I mean, this is, anyway. So, but I think with the remote thing, this is becoming easier because people then, you come in, you go out, and it's much easier to do that than otherwise. So yes, there have been big changes. One of the interesting thing was the Eid prayer, the two festivals. Just now we had one a few days ago in the Biggie, in the Eastern States Exposition, the land, the ground there in West Springfield. We had the Eid prayer. I was standing on top of in the back of a pickup truck and delivering the sermon. I'll send you that video. It's quite funny because I'm standing in the back of the truck, and we had about 3,000 people who attended, and they all drove in, and it was like a drive-in movie,
Yep. So that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, drive-in movie.
Yep.
So you park your car, and then you, in this case, you don't pull out your popcorn, but but you pull out your prayer mat and you pray next to your car, either sitting in the car or outside the car. Just you and your family, and the other group is 6 feet or more away from you. So all new things which were new to us. We still miss very much, especially at the time of the festival. We miss the physical meeting. In our religion, it's in Islam, as you know, it's very sort of clasping your hand, shaking hands, hugging each other. All of this is very much part of the greeting of the religion. We don't do that. We've now developed a new way of greeting, which is we just put your right hand on your chest and you do that sort of. So it's a new one which seems to be doing the job.
Good. It's interesting. I don't know. It's very much in line with what you hear from other groups and just all these different kind of exploratory ways of having to figure things out and figuring out what the stipulations of the tradition allow and like what needs to be rethought and why and so forth. Another question that I'm asking of all the different groups is if you could say something about the role or the place of queer folk in your community. What role do LGBTQI plus people play in the life of the society?
As far as the society is concerned, as far as the mosque is concerned, it's a place of spiritual upliftment. It's a place where people go for their spiritual fix. And and really, I mean, we have no signs there saying LGBT welcome or LGBT not welcome. Everybody's welcome. So irrespective of any of that, you are most welcome. You come, you pray, you go home. I mean, there's no remark on that. Obviously, it is a place for spiritual work. It's a place for So, for example, if we would not allow someone to come and give a political speech. Right? It's not a place for politics. So if I go there, I say, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, very nice. Now start praying. That's how it is. So similarly for anything else, we say, most welcome, please come pray. Any other non-prayer or non-spiritual agenda is for outside the mosque. And of course, most welcome. I mean, no, we don't stop anybody. But in the mosque, it's purely a spiritual space. And of course, everybody is welcome.
Great, thank you. And then the last of the kind of the three questions I've been asking everybody is, of course, at the same time that all these different groups and everybody in colleges and everywhere was sort of forced to disperse and go virtual and so forth. You had these really visible series of social justice issues, right? Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, the whole late spring into the summer, everything since then. And I'm interested in how that has impacted your community, how you've responded to that, and I guess the challenges of doing so while, as you say, you're not together in the way that you had been before. And so how has that played out for the society?
For one thing, after that George Floyd thing happened, I delivered one sermon on Friday which was directly focused at racial justice. So we did that. We did a lot of talking on that basis. What happens and what helps us is that we are a very diverse community. So we are, for us, helps. And also, I think in a way, for example, if you walk into the mosque, or I mean, virtually speaking, and if you ask the average person in this part of the world, New England, did you ever experience racism direct face to face? The answer you will probably get from the majority of people is no. If you ask me, for example, did you ever experience racism face to face? My answer is no. I mean, so maybe I know all the nice people who only bought something. I don't know. The point is that, but does racism exist? Of course it does. I mean, no one can deny that. It exists, and it exists in pretty ugly ways in different parts of the world. And I'm sure there are also other people. For example, my nephew was telling me, it's interesting, my nephew was telling me, he went to a private school in Wilbraham, which is a very sort of, expensive school. So he has the children in that school, his school friends, are both white and black. And economically speaking, all of them are wealthy. But he says that, and I'm talking about now several years ago, not now, but when he was in school. So this is like a couple of, maybe a decade or more ago. Now, he was saying that if he was in the mall, and he's talking about Enfield Mall, he said, if I'm in the mall with my white friends, the security guards and so on, they don't bat an eyelid. We can walk around anywhere, absolutely no problem. But he said, if I'm in the mall with my black friends, with my African friends, and some of them are African American, some of them are not even American, they are African.
Right.
He said, invariably, the security guard will walk up and he'll be polite, but he will say, hi guys, how you doing? Everything well, and so on. We say, of course, everything is well. And then he says, we can see that guy keeping an eye on us. Now he says, every single time I walk into the mall with my with the white guys, a different reaction, black guys, different reaction. So I mean, this is right here at Enfield. So the point is that there is racism. Yes, people do experience it, but maybe it would be correct to say it's not as much in the face as it is elsewhere.
Yeah, and the sort of, as you say, I think the term now would be things like microaggressions or profiling, right? The sort of things that are less direct, but much more sort of indirect, right?
Much more indirect, yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's there, believe me, I mean, that's not something that can be, people might think they're hiding it, they can't. I mean, when you're experiencing it, you know exactly what's happening.
Yep. It's kind of tied in with that, but like moving off of the specific issue of like racial or ethnic identity, but I'm wondering if you encounter or think there are, Islam, for my money, is one of the least understood traditions by lots and lots of Americans, right? So are there common misperceptions that you encounter or that you think people have or that, that you hear from other members of the society that, I guess what are some of those common misperceptions and how do you sort of respond to those or try to counter those?
Okay. Let me go back to your first question about the anti-racist movement, and then I'll come back to this one.
Sure.
What we also did was we did and we continue to participate in all the activities happening to deal with racism. So we have been to demonstrations, street demonstrations. We have been, on the net for various things. We have contributed both materially, meaning in terms of money, as well as in terms of effort. So all of that has also happened simultaneously. So it's not just me giving one lecture. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot more than that. Now to come back to the other question that you asked about misconceptions. One is Islam is very not very well understood. That's one very important thing, and you're absolutely right. The other thing is that Islam is also the target of a lot of hatred. So this Islamophobia is big business for a lot of people. They're making money out of it. So with the result that on the one hand you don't have good information, on the other hand you get a lot of bad information. So the average person, to expect them to do their own research and to be absolutely objective and so on and so forth, I think is highly unrealistic. I mean, that's not going to happen. There will be the individual who will take the trouble to do that, but most people won't. Most people will just go by what's coming at them on television or whatever it is. So our way of dealing with it is twofold. One is through our interfaith work. I work, for example, and me and many of us, we work with several interfaith groups in this area. Now, the interfaith group, in a way, is also preaching to the choir, because all of the all of the people are of the same frame of mind. They're all highly welcoming and high, So we are really not talking to the, within quotes, opposition, whatever that is, but at least to the extent possible, there is a sharing of even with the interfaith groups. Believe me, there is a lot of misinformation. I mean, maybe they don't. They're not in the Islamophobic area, but definitely they do not know many things. So I think one of the ways we have dealt with this is to try to be as open as possible. Our mosque, for example, has been always open. Anybody can come in. Anybody can come and watch the prayer. They can come and ask any questions they want. So we have never had a closed door policy. We've always been extremely open. We have annually we have one iftar which is jam packed which is the breaking of the fast in Ramadan, which is totally jam packed with our neighbors and with interfaith groups and so on. Of course, obviously we haven't had it for the last 2 years, but that was the thing we used to do. We also participate in exhibitions and so on and so forth. And then we talk a lot in different forums, different fora about Islam. So I think the whole thing is to continuously is to keep an open place where people can come and ask questions, and also to participate. Like, for example, I'm talking to you now, and with this meeting is where I'm saying, okay, here I am. You want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth? Here's the horse. So ask the questions. So it's like that. So we try to do as much of that as possible. I think it will take some time, but the other side of it is, my experience is that the average American person, I have found that person to be far more open and far more willing to listen and far more willing to change their opinion than my experience with people in other parts of the world. I mean, I travel extensively around the world, and I've met people and I've spoken to people in different parts of the world. But my experience of the average American person is that he or she is far more open, far more willing to listen to something which they never heard before, and they are far more willing to say something like, what, I never thought of it like that. So okay, here's a perspective. So I think it will take time, but given time, we hope to do something good. Usually people say that Muslims are better behaved, and because alcohol is banned, so we have you are not that likely to find some guy who's drunk and all that stuff. So that way it's in society also. I hope I'm right that we try to create a nice example of how we should live as good neighbors. There is, as you know, in Islam a huge focus on the welfare of the neighbor, and a lot of us try to, from the mosque we definitely do, but I'm saying even individuals. We've done, for example, throughout this month of Ramadan, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we, apart from contributing we have a pantry here, which is a Christian pantry, which we contributed, I think, $5,000 to that. But apart from that, we gave out, I think, if I'm not mistaken, about 3,000 or 4,000 meals to homeless people. And this is an ongoing activity. I mean, it's not just one. I tell people, I mean, people are people. They're not pythons. They don't eat once in a year. So we got to feed them on a regular basis. So I think this is that's the kind of stuff we keep doing, trying to do our best to show to show that we can live together in harmony.
Good. I think one of the sort of last thoughts that I have or question is, and it kind of relates to that. If people were to form a single impression of the Islamic society, right? What would you want that to be? What would you want? If they came and did visit or got to know you or heard, all of this sort of stuff, what would you want them to take away from that?
The thing I would like them to take away from is, if I need somebody, if I need some help, these are the people I want to go to. Whatever that might be. And I'm not saying that any kind of help we can actually help you, I don't know. But I'm saying that I would like the average person on the street to say that if I need any help, these are the guys I want to go to. Because they will do their best to help me, And even if they can't help me, they will try to find ways of helping me. I mean, if they can't help me directly, they'll find ways of helping me indirectly. I think that's the message that I would really want to send to the world. That if there is a Muslim who is your neighbor, I want you to think of him or her as a person that you can go to if you need anything. If the Islamic Society is there, this is the place you can come to if you need anything. And we will definitely do our best to help you to the best of our ability.
Great, thank you. Excuse me. Let me ask the students if they have any sort of questions or comments here. I know we're coming to kind of the end of the time. I should also say that this is the third week of this kind of intensive class, so I think all the students are a little exhausted by this point. But I will ask, I'm looking for the little digital hands, if anybody has a question or anything you'd like to ask to follow up to anything that Sheikh Yawar has shared with us so far. Not seeing any yet. Okay, so we're probably just about finished. Let me thank you again for your perseverance in connecting and for your time. I'll just tell the students again, as we've seen with the others, the links are on the Canvas site if you want to go and look at more about the Islamic Society. Obviously, Sheikh Yawar, if you want to follow up with me for any reason, I'd be happy to do so. This is the first time we've done this class, but it's a class I hope to run in the future. So I'm hoping that this will be something that can become a more regular thing at Landmark. I see a hand from Daniel. Go ahead.
Yeah, where are you from?
Are you asking Sheikh Yawar, where are you from?
Yes,
Oh, me? I am from a city called Hyderabad in India.
I see.
Right. Thank you. I'll just remind the students, if you ask a question, that's great, but remember to mute afterward, because sometimes we're getting the speaker is picking up, your microphone is picking up the speaker. Max, I think your hand is up as well.
Yeah, so what branch of Islam is your mosque a part of?
Are you talking about like Sunni, Shia, that sort of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This is Sunni. Sunni.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And it's my understanding too, Sheikh Yawar, and correct me if I'm wrong, that those distinctions are less pronounced in in a context like where you are in Western Mass than they might be other parts of the world, right? Because it's as you say, you're this that there aren't a lot of different Muslim communities for all of these different Muslims of different ethnic backgrounds and national and cultural backgrounds. So would that be a safe assumption that some of those distinctions are not as pronounced as they might be in other parts of the world?
Let me put it this way. Number one is, yes, of course, it's a safe assumption. Number two, fundamentally, Islamically speaking as well, in Islam, they are not pronounced. I mean, the basic fundamental principles of Islam are the same, whether you are Shia or Sunni or anything else. Because the basic fundamental principles of Islam is what? Worshipping of one God, worshipping Allah and nobody else, no partners, no any kind of, we don't have a son of God, none of that. Then we believe in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as the last and final messenger. The basic fundamentals are the same, Shia, Sunni and all that. The differences are more peripheral, and like you said, in some parts of the world they seem to be more pronounced than here. Here we are. Our mosque is, as I said, it's a within quote Sunni mosque, but we have a number of Shia people who come and pray here.
Yeah.
I mean, they come and pray, and we have no. They are like us. I mean, there's no difference.
Right. Okay. AC, I see your hand is up.
So, so your community, you know how in some churches they're called parishioners. What is what do you call people in your community?
You mean like the Christians will say parishioners or congregants or something like that? Yeah. Is there a specific term for one who attends the mosque?
We don't have a specific term for one who attends. The general term for the Muslim community is ummah.
Okay.
Ummah basically means from the same mother. In this case, the mother would be the religion. So it is, and that would apply to anybody who, whether you attend the mosque or not, is the part of the ummah. Incidentally, the part of the Ummah, even people who are non-Muslim, you are all part of the Ummah. Because the Ummah has two parts. The Ummah has those who believe in Islam, and the Ummah also has those who don't believe in Islam. So in Islam we call the brotherhood of faith and the brotherhood of humanity, and both of them are equally important. So everyone is in the Ummah. People who come to the mosque, we don't have a specific name for them as such.
Yeah, I was just typing up some notes, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't.
I mean, you could you could say parishioners in that sense of people who come, but if you ask me, do you have somebody as a parishioner and non-parishioner? No, we don't. I mean,
Okay, thank
Muslim
you.
is a Muslim is a Muslim.
Yep. Daniel, I see your hand. Do you have a second question? Or is your hand still up from before?
No, I just forgot to take it down.
That's fine. If I could tell you how many faculty meetings I've been in with like faculty hands that never come down, I would, yeah. All right, well, I think that takes us just about to the end of the time. I want to thank the students for the questions. Sheikh Yawar, again, thank you for your time. I just want to remind the students that your response, your reflection form on the guest speaker is due tonight, so just don't forget that. I will see all of you tomorrow. Sheikh Yawar, as I say, thank you again very much for your time, and again for the perseverance of connecting. And feel free to follow up for any reason. And thank you very much.
No, I'm honored, and I'm very happy to be part of your class, and I look forward to more such experiences as you wish. And also, I'll be very happy to continue to interact. Of course, you and I will, but also your students. If anybody wants to email me directly, they have some questions today, tomorrow, day after, anytime, I'm more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Have a nice day.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon.